Hey, so today I want to walk you through the local fast architecture and not the architecture itself, but what it's about, what kind of problems it solve for the users, what kind of problems it solve for developers, and the products and the business founders and actually the organizations in general, and why everybody is so keen about it. And if you're talking about the local fast, a lot of people misunderstood it, that they think that the local fast is about the local data on the user device. But the local data on the user device actually is not new idea. So long time ago, before the internet, we had the personal computers, we had the application on these personal computers, and this approach called the offline fast, that you're able to work without the internet. So this is not the new idea. So the local fast it gets this idea on steroids. And the local fast have a lot of common ideas and principles with the self-sovereign identity, because the local fast, um, the main goal of the local fast is the data ownership. So it's the data ownership. So we shift the data closer to the user, um, and the user fully own it. So nobody could take the said data out. But the main difference that local fast say that just to give the data to the user is not enough. It needs to give the uh, possibility to work with this data. So we needs to give the data together with the instruments and the possibility to get the value out of data and use this data. And if you're not a crazy data scientist, you just use the data via the applications. So yeah, not via some complex query or tools or notebooks, but you just use the application and it's help you to consume, collect the data. And the local fast combine the application itself and the data. And we really shift this package of the application together with the data to the user side. And it's the main idea of the local fast. But you could use not just your device, you could use multiple devices. And our reality nowadays that every user have multiple devices. These devices could have completely different capabilities, and it's formed some kind of mesh of the computation power that the user have in his hand, together with the possibility to offload some task still to the cloud. So we don't exclude the cloud from the local first equation. We still could use the hybrid solutions. And the main idea of the local file that we grab the database, move it to the user device, but we have the sync layer that allow us to replicate this data across devices to upload some data to the cloud. And the ultimate vision of the local fast that we have the syncing protocol that take all this complexity of synchronizing data, and as far as it's a protocol in future, maybe we could use different sync providers as far as we use, for example, the LM providers nowadays. So uh, you need to remember two things from the technical point of view about the local fast. We move the database to the user closer, and he own it together with the application. And we have the sync layer that do all the magic, take out the complexity, make developers happy, and user don't care about this part. So what actually user get when he have the local first application? The main benefit that's visible immediately that we don't have the waiting time spinners, and the application works super fast because we don't have the delays, and it's really increase heavily the usability of the application and give us the possibility to build the complex UI that was not feasible before, and eliminate the local the loading time for sure. And yet another thing that is super important for the wide range of applications, where the the workflow is super important to the user, that you go into your flow stream of thinking, and nothing is interrupting you, right? And then you not depend on the internet anymore. You don't depend on anything. You could, for example, have the long flight to the US and do everything that you need without the interruption, without the waiting spinners, without everything. And you just think, you do what you want, and when you landed, you get the connection to the Wi-Fi, and then it's magically synchronized with everything. But you have less interruptions, and you could focus on your things. And for the application that require a lot of thinking, planning, and all of the stuff, it's really the big the benefit for the user. Also, we will talk about this nerdy part about the developers, but as far as we have the less layers, less complexity, and we don't have the case that we send something to the server and it's failed there and you lose your data, we have less errors, and user really see it. So we eliminate a lot of cases where user do something and lost his data or needs to repeat his action, and it's quite frustrating experience. And I couldn't say that we exclude it completely for the user, but user have it less and less, and we will see in the development part how we achieve this. But less errors, more focus, and more speed, it's what user immediately get, and we could explain it quite easily as a benefits to the people. More complex benefits that user get, it's harder to explain because it's lie in a space of the privacy and data security and all of things. Because if you have your data on your own, nobody could steal this data from you, and we exclude the possibility of leaking of the data. You fully on control of this data, and yeah, so you get the autonomy, you get the better privacy, and you have the ownership that nobody could take away from you. So that's the main promise. Also, we exclude the cases that I called amazing journey. So, what's this amazing journey mean? That you have some cool product. For example, I was enjoying the Wunderlist for the years, but in some point of time, this company just go out of the business, or they decide to do it completely different, or they just bought with the Microsoft, and then they go to the users and say, it was amazing journey, thank you. If you still want to use something like that, you could use our to-do list that we do on the Microsoft. By the way, you could download all your data as a zip file of useless JSON files. Thank you for your staying with us. And it's this amazing journey, and we really eliminate the possibility that if company will go out of business, user will lose all his value and his data, because the data and computation stay together and stay on the user side. So maybe user will lose some updates or the more complex features, but the application that was built in a local fast setup will continue working over the years. And it's quite important because it's built trust. It's built the trust and confidence that the time that you invest to the application not wasted. And I guess it's important thing. We could talk a lot about different benefits that users gets, but actually it's the main key points. And now we will talk about the nerdy topic, because we will talk what developers get with the local fast architecture and local fast setup. And I'm a developer, so for me it's easier to talk about the developers, and also it will be easier to explain to you the product and organization side, because developers are part of the product and organization structure, right? So the main benefit of local fast, it's acceleration and development experience. The development experience matter as same as a user experience, because first of all, how we work with the data nowadays, it's super complex. In a post-cloud era, everything is internet as a web services. So in your application on UI, you have some data that used to present the UI, but you get this data through the web services as a API calls, as a JSON, and when you go to the server, you have some business objects that also stay in memory and implement some logic. And this data actually stored in a database in also in some forms. So we have this triple or 5-time transformation of the same data that stay on the database to show them on the user screen. And it's a lot of layers, and every layer could introduce errors, and every layer could introduce the latency of processing, some delays, and the main problem that if we're talking about the server communication, it's not reliable. So it could introduce not just the huge delays, but significant amount of errors. And you need to maintain the infrastructure for all these layers, and you have a lot of complexity, and you need to have the different kind of developers that should be able to do the different parts. And sometimes you're lucky to have the full stacks, but sometimes you need to maintain the database, the server side, and UI logic as separate teams and all of these things. And what's local fast offer? It's heavily, it's dramatically simplify the architecture, because you take the database and bring it to the application. So you don't have all these extra layers and all this data transformation. Your application could go directly to the database, grab what it's need, and show it on UI. So it's we really lowering the cognitive load. So the people needs to keep a much simplified model in the brain. They could iterate faster, and they have the less errors because they have the less layers to care about, and it's the main value. Another big value that you have fully introduce a reproducible setup, because you could have a bug, for example, and then you have the local database. So you could pack this local database to the file, give to your colleague, and he will reproduce the same case. Or maybe the users could do the same trick. They could make the snapshot of their data and give it together with the bug report to the developers that they could really investigate the thing. And it's a more the live coding of the Smalltalk that really change the bug fix and the speed, how we work. So we have the less cognitive load, we have more simplified model, and we have the possibility to iterate faster and to build faster, to debug and figure out what's going wrong much faster. And what's most important thing that in this setup we have the less code and the less possibilities to make the errors. And the more important that without the network communication, we don't need to build the error handling and retrieval mechanism, and we exclude all the errors that could came from the network communication. And it's a huge part of work to maintain the network communication and in modern applications. So we just get more time for features that matter for the user. And I guess we could complete this block about the benefits of the developers. So the benefits for the product managers and the product team. So that you already have a couple of important things that I described. You have the users that have the faster UI and better experience, and you have the happier developers. And it's already a really good start. Yeah, because a lot of organization doesn't have this. And because developers doesn't fight with the errors anymore, and they able to iterate faster, they have the ability to run the experiments faster. And the main value of SU as a product that you could try a lot faster, and you with the local fast you have this possibility to experiment and set up the experiment environment completely locally on your machine, try the different things, and it's priceless. I believe that. So we have possibility to run the shorter cycles, try the different features, and then another big thing that overlooked that, when we have the cloud set up, we try to make the generic interface that will satisfy all kinds of users. And it's exclude a lot of this possibility to deviate, experiment, and all the things. Or it's make it super complex. But with the local fast setup, as far as you have the possibility to ship slightly different applications and modify um, the app together with the data, uh, with possibility of the high customization, then you could serve the different needs of the different users differently in a much lower case, and you don't need to have this super universal interface. So and you could even try a lot of things locally, right? So you don't need to set up the big infrastructure for the tests, and you just gets the better setup for different features and A/B testing and all of this stuff. And I guess it's a big value as a product manager. So you have the possibility to iterate, do the experiments, and help team to focus more on the features, not on the technical problems. Also, what we benefit as an organization or as a business or from the founder point of view, that happier developer mean the better retention. People are happy, you don't need to spend a lot of money on maintaining the team, for hiring the new people. The lower cognitive load and complexity mean that we have the shorter onboarding of the people and smaller code base, so they understand it better. They start to be productive faster, for sure. And um, that another technical thing that have huge values for the organization, that you shift the computation to the user side. And it's mean that you don't need the huge infrastructure to support. You don't need to pay huge amount of money for the cloud services. You still could have some cloud services, but amount of them much smaller. You consume less computation power, so you pay less for the infrastructure. You don't need to have the super expensive DevOps or infrastructure people in your team, or you have the minimum amount of them. And it's user computation power. It's mean that you don't need to pay the bills for the computation power. And I guess that it's a good benefit, financial one, because I know a lot of companies that give the huge amount of their revenue just back to the Amazon because they run on the Amazon lambdas and all of things. And as I mentioned, that these products have the possibility to experiment, and it's yet another big value for the organization, because they have the flexibility to try the different things cheaper. So it's cheaper to maintain, it's easier to onboard, it's cheaper to run and manage the infrastructure code, and it's much faster to experiment. So the local fest still actively develop, and we have maybe not the perfect tools, and we still, for example, wait for the syncing protocols and more powerful syncing mechanisms, because right now the syncing layer usually the headache of the developers. But we will hope that over the time we will have the more companies that will help to build us this protocol and make the syncing solution as a product available to everybody. And that's why I'm so keen to go to the local fest conference and figure out what kind of new cool things we have in this space. So thank you for listening and see you next time. Choose.